Hello and welcome to another episode of Whose Turn Is It Anyway? I'm Rob. I am your host for this very special expansion episode where we have Tristan Hall joining us of Hall or Nothing Productions. One of my favourite board games is Gloom of Kilforth. Another one is Krill Manor, both designed, produced by Hall or Nothing. So I am very privileged to get the chance to sit down and speak to him. So no further ado, we'll get to it. So I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Tristan Hall. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you, Rob?
Good, yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for coming on, because I appreciate you're incredibly busy at the moment, which is what you've come on the podcast to talk about, which we'll get into in a little bit. So first thing, your first time on the podcast?
Yes, and thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Oh, you're most welcome. Anytime. So when we have a new guest on the pod, we ask them 3 questions. So if you're happy to be in the hot seat for 5 minutes asking these really intense, high-level questions, then I'll crack on with those. So first things first, obviously you are a board game designer. So I'm guessing it kind of stems from playing board games originally. So the first question that we always ask is kind of, how did you get into the hobby in the first place?
All right. Well, it's probably very similar to the answer that everybody else gives then. Because, obviously played games since I was a little kid. I remember getting Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs back in the 1980s, and I was obsessed with all the colours and the dinosaurs and the little figures and the coins. And I remember spent like a whole rainy day copying the entire cover, like drawing it, like just copying the entire thing because I was so obsessed with that explorer in the jungle with the monsters behind him and stuff. But when I came back to gaming as like in my early 20s, I sort of started tinkering with other people's games and making scenarios and like expansion characters and, just fan-made materials and stuff. And I kind of got really like a bit envious of these other game designers who said, "Oh, I've been designing games since I was a kid." And I was like, "Oh gosh, I wish I'd had the wherewithal to do that as a child. I didn't even know that board game designer was a job you could do. I just thought that everything was grown internally in these, impenetrable companies like Games Workshop or whatever." So I always thought, oh God, it's so cool that these guys have been working and it's their vocation is to design games. And then we were clearing out the attic and I found all these games that I'd designed as a kid and all these different modules and all these scenarios for like HeroQuest and stuff. Like, I don't know if you remember those little maths textbooks we used to have, which had little squares on all of the pages. Yeah. And I filled about 3 of those with different scenarios for HeroQuest when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And
oh, that's fantastic.
So I tried to find all these linking parts that sort of, it turns out maybe I was like in training a little bit after all, training wheels anyway.
Kind of an apprenticeship, just not getting paid at all for it rather than getting paid very little. So so effectively you're kind of releasing your back catalogue as opposed to designing new games.
Games were designed when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
So improved a lot on them.
Nope. No.
That's really cool because obviously for me designing a board game is I can barely play them most of the time, let alone design them. So the fact that you were kind of called to it at a very early age, and then it's kind of progressed naturally into your day, your day job. That's fantastic. That's really cool. So it's kind of like a legacy that's weaved all the way through your life. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, and there's stuff that's in there, like lore stuff from when I was a teenager playing Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And like the name Kilforth comes from a D&D. And in fact, I found like a little game book. I was trying to write a fighting fantasy game book when I was about 10, like at primary school. And it was called Kilfrith back in the day, and at some point that had evolved. Maybe I found it too difficult to say or something, and so there's this weird sort of connective tissue that I had in the back of my mind, and it's all kind of a love letter to Tolkien anyway.
As most fantasy
like a lot of it is sort of Yeah, a lot of it sort of come from these obscure childhood ideas. And you mentioned before we started recording Creole Manor. The name Creole Manor comes from like a board game that I designed when I was at high school, and it's completely different. Obviously now it was like roll 2d6 and move here and do that kind of stuff. But I loved the name. You know, Creole Manor still felt like it had like a an interesting vibe, and it also tied in with like some D&D stuff I'd done, and so I had like quite a bit of lore about it anyway. And then, of course, when we put it on Kickstarter, the Stranger Things came up with Creole Manor, and with a C, and I was like, "Damn, am I going to get busted, or can I just show them this game I designed like 30 years ago or whatever?" And so, yeah, no, it's interesting looking back at the legacy elements that have come together, and I'd like to think it would be a happy conversation if I could go back to 10-year-old me and say, one day you'll get to do this for a living. And, you don't have to worry too much about GCSEs or whatever.
So is that with like all of your games, it feels like there is quite a deep lore to the world. And I'm guessing if you've been building it for 20, 30 years, that's why that kind of comes through so easily. Because you've been planning this stuff for so long. That's absolutely awesome. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's a weird one because there's elements that have changed obviously, and then there's stuff that I've not even scratched the surface of, like the gods of Guildforth and the sort of mythology that that like birthed the world, and like how would I sort of work that into a board game, and some like more abstract elements that would be harder to like contain in it, but because I've been really lucky in that the games have been quite well received, and I've been able to come back and do like reprints and sequels and prequels and all that kind of stuff, and it's gradually sort of getting to tease out little bits and pieces as time goes on. But also from a game designer perspective, I also want to try and do different worlds, different genres, different. I want to do science fiction, and I've obviously done some history games, and I'd like to do like a Wild West game and all these different things. So as soon as anything starts to feel kind of repetitive or rote, I can just step away from it, and my brain's always chasing the next game anyway. So I can just select the next idea and run with that. And so I mean, it really feels like I feel dead lucky. I worked in office jobs for other people for like 20 years. And of course, the first game that I did, Gloom of Kilforth, was a passion project, and it was like a hobby, and it went really well on Kickstarter, and eventually led to me being able to do this full time. And so now not a day goes by. I've been doing it for nearly 9 years. But I don't like sort of think, how long can I get away with this for? I'm making games for fun, for a living. When am I going to get found out, sort of thing?
Imposter syndrome, almost.
Yeah, I think so. But it's also really fun. I mean, it's hard as well. You work sometimes like 16-hour days. My wife will, get up in the morning and I'm still going, and she's like, "What are you doing?" But it's kind of like almost like the cloud. You scale up to when you need it. So if you're really busy, you can work really long shifts to get through it. And then, after a campaign or like during a print run or something where there's a little bit more downtime, I can get to sort of chill out a bit and come back down to earth. So
yeah, you can't go 100% all the time. You'd be completely burnt out.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and one of the things, like back in the day, I used to want to make movies, and I wanted to be like the next Shane Meadows, and start doing like British independent films and stuff. And I ended up doing corporate video work, and I was like, oh, this will get me, the experience will be like with cameras and editing suites and sound and stuff. And every weekend or every evening I got in, the last thing I wanted to do was touch a camera, or an edit suite. It was just like, oh my God, I can't even bear the thought of it. So, but that's not happened with board game design. Like when I clock off, I'm like, oh, what should I do now? I want to play a board game. so it's not hit yet. Like, and if it did, I'd probably want to try, maybe write a novel or something like that.
There's definitely novels to be made in the world of Kilforth, 100%.
For sure, yeah. I mean, the latest game that we're about to deliver, Sublime Dark. I don't really talk about it too much because one of the sort of twee things we came up with was this notion of like keeping information about it kind of secret. Because when I was a kid and I bought board games, the only information we'd have about them was what was on the box. There was no previews, unboxing,
No
rule books online. Yeah, you
Yeah.
had to pick it up, and if it had a cool cover, you were like, "Oh wow!" And so I wanted to recapture some of that. So I don't talk about it too much, but one of the things that I can't escape this year is that one of my personal goals was to write a book, was to write a novel. And it didn't happen because I ended up writing something like 40,000 words worth of texts for the for the version of Blind Dark. So I was like, well, I kind of tick that box. It's not strictly,
It's half
you know,
ticked.
it doesn't follow in order and it's non-sequential and stuff. But technically, the creative volume is there. So and certainly the creative exhaustion is there. So yeah, but maybe one day, I'd love to do to write a book as well. But right now, I've got so many games that I want to.
Yeah. Maybe when you do get a little bit tired of board game design,
Yeah.
that's another avenue to kind of pursue.
We'll see.
No doubt you'll smash that as well.
Fingers crossed.
The second question, this doesn't have to be one of your own. It can be, by all means. But what is your favourite board game of all time?
Does anybody say one of their own? It's certainly not. I'm very proud of the games that I've done, but there's like you know all the tricks, you know what's behind the scenes, you know what's coming, you know all the cards, you know all the lore, so you can't surprise yourself with your own game the same way.
Yeah, I'd never thought of it that way.
If I think about games that I enjoy, I also don't consider mine in the same league. Like I look at people like Vlaada Chvátil and designers like that, like superheroes, like far and away beyond what I could ever do. You play a game like Mage Knight and or Through the Ages, and for me, I'm like, how did one guy design both of those games? Those are both like 10 out of 10, like masterpiece games. So I guess it would be, if I had to say a favorite, with the caveat that it would be subject to change depending on what day of the week it is. But the one that I've written articles about and stuff is Through the Ages, which I think is pretty much flawless as a game. But it's kind of also dated in some respects because it has things like player elimination, which is like a sort of frowned upon concept in this day and age. The fact that you can literally wipe someone off the table and have them have to sit there and watch you for the next 2 hours or whatever it is, is really archaic. But it's also, there's like online implementations of it as well that you can play. And I love the tech tree, the development, and the fact that you're chasing about 8 different like progress tracks. You've got to manage your food, your materials, your science, your culture, and all these different point tracks and stuff. And it's just so clever and it's so brilliantly implemented. Like I loved Civilization growing up on the PC and playing, Civ games. And the only thing it doesn't have is that exploration, with the tiles. But you don't miss it when you're playing Through the Ages. It doesn't feel like it's missing anything. You're so fraught with trying to get your 2 little farmers into becoming like rocket scientists or whatever. It's got so many brilliant elements, and I live in awe of people like Vlaada or Martin Wallace and those kinds of dudes who just knock it out of the park each time.
I've never played it. I've heard an awful lot about it. I've never had the opportunity to play it, but hopefully, if we get those guys on the pod one day and they say, I'm really in awe of what Tristan Hall's doing, I will personally I would deliver you the file in a frame. So yeah,
it'd be Tristan who?
I doubt that very much. So the final question. So obviously, a lot of your time is spent developing and kind of dealing with all the elements of getting a board game into people's hands. But when you do get a couple of hours of downtime, what's been on your table lately?
Oh, what games? Okay. So we have a regular game night at my house with some close friends, and then and so that one we'll get to play. Sometimes we'll get to play campaign games because you have to get the same team to commit to those. but we're quite flighty, so we'll play like adventures of one campaign and then jump onto the next one. We had a bit of a dalliance with Conan, the Monolith
Oh, okay.
name, because I'm kind of a sucker for miniatures, even though I'm completely incapable of painting. Like I've spent hours painting and just like looking at the so mostly all of my miniatures games are like a sea of grey plastic. Um, yeah, so even so, we love playing like miniatures campaign games and things, and Cthulhu, Death May Die, and Shadows of Brimstone. But then I also go to a local like games night where it's just everyone brings a different thing every week, so you try all different kinds of games. So it's always the new shiny. One of my regrets is that you play and enjoy a game, and like say I don't know, like Game of Thrones, the board game or something like that, and you love it, and then you don't get to play it again for like a year because so many other games enter rotation. So you never really. It's harder to drill down into the minutiae of the different tactics and stuff. And I guess growing up as a kid, I got to play games to death, to rinse the life out of them. And that's why I would end up creating expansion material and stuff to like prolong the life of those games. So this is a roundabout way of trying to think of the games I've been playing recently. One of the ones we played a few times recently is the new edition of Cyclades.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's like an ancient Greek mythology, area control, dudes on a map type game. And it had been on my wish list for about 20 years, for so long, in fact, that the edition has changed. So the version that I ended up getting for my birthday this year is called the Legendary Edition. And it's like an evolution of whatever the game was that I was desperate to play 20 years ago. But as it turns out, it's a really fun, plays quite quickly.
Awesome.
And it features one of my favorite themes, like Greek mythology. You get to summon the Medusa and like muck about with your mates, and it has really crazy, like overpowered combos and stuff, which some people will probably deplore. But in a game like that, it's kind of like Eclipse and those 4X type games, or the games where you're ultra competitive. I kind of don't mind, because if I get hit by a ridiculous combo and taken out, I'm like, yeah, but next game I might be the one doing that. So kind of come to terms with it. And so we've played that about 5 or 6 times this year, which may or may not sound like a lot. I don't know like what other people get to play their games, but for me to play the same game that many times is a rare treat.
No, 100%.
Outside of playtesting.
It's quite interesting what you said there, because my favourite thing about your games is that they're not hundreds of minis. So it's quite funny how that hasn't transferred over, because I'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, that I find that quite interesting, because I'm like you. I've got miniature games, and like they are all grey, because I can't invest the time to paint them. Or that's a lie. I can't invest the time to become good enough to be able to paint them without ruining them. So I find that quite interesting. But no, that's awesome. Well, I'll keep an eye out for that. That sounds really interesting. We've got a couple of guys in our group that would love the theme. So yeah, 100%.
Backstabbing and treachery.
That our gaming group was built on those very principles. So that sounds
just
awesome.
Firm foundations.
Yeah, because we make, like you said, we kind of try and play Game of Thrones once a year, and we always have it's kind of like an event game. Yeah. And we try and get it to the table once a year, and even that we struggle with. But every time we play it, it says, "Oh, I wish I could play this more." But I haven't got 8 hours free every weekend to be able to do it, unfortunately. So no, that's awesome.
And on the miniatures thing, we have done miniatures for the Killforth games, but they're incredibly expensive to produce, and so the games that have hundreds of miniatures and stuff, they tend to be ones that fund to the tune of X $1 million, and that. So once you're at that level of scale, you can produce a lot of miniatures. We're not there yet. I'd love to do like a Dungeons of Killforth, miniatures exploration.
Shut up and take my money. I feel all over that.
Maybe we'll do like a standee version, work our way up to like a miniatures version one day.
That sounds awesome. Thanks for that, Tristan. That was awesome. I'll make sure that I keep an eye out for those games because they sounded very, very interesting. So awesome. So the main reason for inviting you onto the pod is because you've got a Kickstarter going at the moment, and it's the first time I've ever really got a chance to get out ahead of your games rather than my local All or Nothing dealer, Ninja Geek Games, Mark himself. He has to get a mention on every podcast, where he introduced me to you a few years ago, and he has now become my dealer in all things All or Nothing Productions. So it's quite nice to actually get out ahead of what's coming, as opposed to kind of, this has been out and you'll really enjoy it. So the campaign's live on Kickstarter at the moment and ends on the 6th of January.
Correct. Yes. It's been running for a couple of weeks now. It's funded already, so that's really cool.
Awesome.
It's really encouraging.
Fantastic.
You never know. It's always like pressing the reset button when you start a new campaign. And you're like, I wonder if anybody's going to turn up to this one. As often as possible, try to do different things to try and keep it interesting for me and for backers. One of the things about some of my games is the rule books are 20 pages or more in some cases. So I love deep, complex games, and we were just talking before about like Through the Ages and MageNet and stuff. But one of the things I also love is short games that can be played very quickly because you've got maybe a spare half-hour lunch, break, or you're waiting to go out or something like that, and of course, fewer of my games have that like capacity to just sort of break out and and go. So I've been toying with a few ideas over the years of like a game that you can just pick up and shuffle and get into. And there's a few games in my collection that I enjoy doing that, and they play very quickly. And so this time, the pair of games that I've launched, Night of Wolves and Ruined Path, both try to capture that. A game you can play in half an hour and you can just solo it, and there's a co-op mode for Night of Wolves as well. And they both do, hopefully, quite a different thing. So the Ruined Path is a solo deck building game, which is quite strategic and, difficult and very mechanical. I've taken off all the flavor text this time. So whilst ostensibly it's a kill forth game, you're not really telling an epic tale in the way that you would if you were playing one of the other games. So hopefully it's challenging, and it's got like lots of variation and different bosses and different character setups and ways to make it like replayable and interesting, whilst also giving you like a deck builder type fix. And then on the other hand, it is the game Night of Wolves, which is the first in the series, which is kind of a love letter to sort of the choose your path type adventure books, like the Fighting Fantasy game books and stuff, in that you you don't flip cards when you're playing those game books, but for this one it's a deck of cards, and you flip over a series of cards. We've got like thousands of gorgeous images from our games that we've been collating over the last 10 years, and so it's also an opportunity to highlight the artwork from our artists, the team of brilliant artists that I'm really lucky to be able to work with, who bring life to these games. And so on the one hand, you've got these beautiful art cards, and then you choose one to encounter, you flip it over, and on the other side is like a flavor text adventure. Like in each card is a mini adventure. You could shuffle this deck and use it as like a template to run like a role-playing game. Like it gives you like little vignettes, little encounters that you can just sort of throw into an adventure. That was kind of my design approach, was that like each would be a self-contained little scenario. And so you flip it over, you read the text, and then you get a bunch of choices. And if it was in a game book, it would be if you want to go east, go to paragraph 4, 5, 6, or whatever, that kind of thing. And this one is you make a choice and you rotate the card, and the card has a reward or a penalty based on the choice that you make. And sometimes you'll be forced into certain choices because you won't have the items or the boons or the things that you need to deal with that encounter. And then all you do is rotate the card and then tuck it under your character card to show the results of your choices. So if you go into an ancient cave and you find some treasure and you find an enchanted sword, then you would make a choice. And if you're able to gain that sword, you tuck it under your character so that the enchanted sword is revealed. And then you can use that in future encounters. And if you use it, you discard it. So you're kind of building a tableau of adventures as you go along, but it's kind of zen-like, hopefully, in the way that you do it, because you literally just look at a beautiful piece of artwork, flip it over, read a little adventure, rotate the card, and onto the next one. And it's got a difficulty curve to it. I like difficult games, and of course, if a game's too easy, you'll not come back to it as often. But it's also got ways to make it easier if you're struggling with the difficulty. And all you have to do is get to the bottom of this deck of cards and survive, and then take on one of a bunch of variable bosses, which also require you to spend cards and rotate cards and things like that. And if you get to the bottom, you get to score your adventure, and the whole thing wraps up in. You could do it in 20 to 30 minutes. If you're taking your time to enjoy the artwork and read the stories, maybe you'll take a bit longer. But it really, for me, just hit that sort of middle ground of a game that is dead easy to teach. Like, all of the rules for the game are on 2 cards, which was another design challenge for me, because when you're making a game, you get carried away and you want to add more and more stuff and you want to make it more complex. You're like, oh, what if I had a gold system where you could meet merchants and barter with them and then you can negotiate with them? I'm like, no, just keep it simple. Like, keep it to what it is. And what it is like a relaxing little stroll through Kilforth and meeting various creatures and strangers and going on adventures and stuff, but just in a completely new mechanical milieu for me, which I really enjoy. So it seems to have drawn a few people and attracted a bit of interest.
Exactly, it was that short, simple playthrough, because I have 2 of your games. I have Gloom of Kilforth and I have Quill Manor.
Terrific. Thanks for the support.
No, they're some of my favorite games, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the podcast. I genuinely love them. So for me, I've got the kind of epic exploration game in Gloom of Kilforth, and I have almost the campaign game, not campaign game, but an element that leads from one game to the next, to the next, to the next over a series of kind of sit-throughs. So for having that quick half-hour game for me is right up my street at the moment. My time's quite limited at the moment. So when I went on the Kickstarter and I was like, oh, it's 2 games. I was like, oh, you're not a glutton for punishment enough that you're trying to release 1 game. Secondly, I saw the artwork, which, I mean, all of your games, the artwork is beautiful. We've spoken about this in person a couple of times, and the artwork is just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, very much looking forward to them, because they're quite oversized cards, aren't they? They're bigger. So getting more of that artwork on the cards for me is only a good thing.
And there's no graphic design elements over any of the artwork on these cards. It's full bleed, full artwork, because you play Gloom of Kilforth, and as you say, like, I think we can objectively, I love the artwork. I didn't do the artwork, so I don't claim responsibility for that. So objectively, it's the kind of art I would want to have in a game. Like, I wanted it to go toe to toe with the Lord of the Rings or Star Wars games, those kinds of. So and I'm as I say, really lucky to work with a team of artists who deliver that. But sometimes you've got it all. You've got this beautiful artwork. I've got some of it blown up to posters in my room that's framed and around the office.
Should.
But then it's condensed down into these little 66mm cards, and then covered with texts and various graphics and symbols and stuff. So it still delivers like a presence, a table presence and stuff, but is often quite obscured by paraphernalia, or whatever the word is, for all the junk that I end up sticking over it to make it a playable game. And this time was an opportunity to just really show that off, and just you could just buy it for the cards and not play the game and just leaf through and look at all this artwork. So yeah, that was it was really fun to be able to go through it and pick out those pieces, and highlight different pieces, because as I say, we've got thousands of images that we've accumulated for the world of Kilforth over the years. So it's brilliant to be able to show some of that off.
And quite nice for me. I've only got the 2 games. I'm planning on getting more. Don't worry.
Nice.
But when like the demons that come up at the end of Gloom of Killforth, their artwork, that I find them quite disturbing in a good way, because you want the final boss to kind of look at, and you're like, oh, that's difficult to look at, and not difficult to look at, but I find it uncomfortable because of the artwork so good. So to see elements of games that I've played elsewhere used in other games, I love it when people do that, because it's like a little callback to like a nod to an experience that I've had that I really enjoyed previously. So nice. I'm very much looking. I looked at it and I was like, I don't need another All or Nothing game. I don't need another All or Nothing game. And I said it 4 times, and then I was like, I need another All or Nothing game. It was like, I'm going to do it.
You reverse psychology.
Yeah. But I did it on myself as well. It wasn't like somebody did it to me, which I don't know if that's better or worse somehow.
I'm really glad you said that about the ancients, like the bosses for Killforth as well, because we like deliberately, Carlos Villas is our main monster artist, and I really wanted him to design like hellish, like demonic. That there was no question that you wanted to burn them with fire when you fought them. You know, they were genuinely terrifying. Not you get to the end and you just want to, it's a cute sort of dragon. I like to ride that, you know, and fly on it, or you know, make friends with the bony skeleton or whatever. I wanted it to be, oh my God, I don't even want to look at that. I just have to destroy it. And so he's obviously taken that and run with it for Sublime Dark, which is full of horrendous monster artwork. But the flip side of that is that we have like beautiful landscapes and gorgeous locations and characters and all kinds of things. So for Night of Wolves particularly, it's lovely art to look at. You know,
100%. Yeah. You want your villain to be villainous though, and all the other characters, and like you said, the landscapes. Because I managed to pick up a Pimp My Gloom expansion pack
nice.
At Expo this year. Was it your son that was on the stall with you?
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, I'll try to sell you." I was like, "No need. I want that. I'll take that. Thank you very much. Like, I don't need any more sales pitch. I'm in up to my neck at this point." We're
going to get you on the stand next year, Rob.
Well, I'll happily come and spend a few hours. Not a problem at all. But yeah, seeing the oversized location cards that you get with the Pimp My Gloom, and I love that name for an expansion as well. That's just absolutely fantastic. The oversized cards that you get with it, and kind of seeing those landscapes, as well as the people artwork, just to see the landscapes as well was really nice. So that's an awesome touch. The only thing I saw. So when I went on to the Kickstarter campaign, I saw the price, and I was like, I'm 100% in. I've only ever done big Kickstarters. So when you said about minis and kind of generating millions, I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of what I associated kind of Kickstarter campaigns with, was, you know, that £300, £400, £500 mark, which is can be mental. I think I'm mental for doing it most of the time, but it doesn't seem to stop me, which is, again, quite worrying. But when I saw the price points of both of the games, of one, you know, of either game or both of them. So for people listening, I've got it on screen next to me, so I'm not that professional. But the Night of Wolves for £29, and the Ruin Path for £25. Was that a conscious decision to try and keep it as low as possible, but make it more you know, kind of more enticing?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like everything is going up now, all the costs. Artists are having to put their rates up to compete with companies that are using AI to do their artwork for them. You know, and that's a model that's like insane to me. You know, we spent over the years hundreds of thousands of pounds on artwork, and now companies are producing games and spending 20 quid on artwork and making hundreds of thousands of pounds. So these artists, you know, have been working for like their lives trying to make a living, and now being iced out by, you know, this slop. And so it does make, that's one cost. Then there's the cost of production, then there's the cost of shipping, and there's a cost of tariffs, and then there's a cost of all these crazy elements that just staying afloat and making games these days is daunting. And then staying afloat in the sea of 3,000 or 4,000 games that are coming out each year and trying to have yours stand out amongst them is certainly daunting. And as somebody who backs and buys lots of games as well, um, it's a tough prospect. Like you say, if you want to go in on a miniatures game and you want to get all the bits because you don't want to miss out on anything, you can go down the rabbit hole and soon find yourself like hovering over the complete purchase. Like, what am I doing? And so deliberately, these games are decks of cards. There is no components. There's no extra punch boards. There's no extra plastic, wood. Deliberately designed to be decks of cards, not just for ease of access in terms of shuffle a deck and off you go when you're playing the game, but as you say, to keep that price point as low as possible. These are lowest priced games that we've made. Whether or not that has an impact, like an accessibility impact, I don't know. We'll find out by the end of the campaign how well they did compared to previous campaigns, and like whether they appeal to new backers or existing backers or people who've never heard of us, or that's all data that we can look at after the fact. But what it has done is allowed us to fund early, which is reassuring, a rate where we can go into production on a healthy print run without having to try and get into a retail market in the UK or the US or whatever. If retail comes, brilliant, but it's certainly not something that we have to be heavily motivated towards. And yeah, it's Christmas time. I'm aware that we're running a campaign over Christmas. I also wanted to make sure that we got new games and made them available this year, because I obviously have quite a lot coming down the pipeline, but we haven't launched anything because it's taken me so long. I'll fall on my sword. It's taken me so long to get Sublime Dark ready and off to print, and there's been so many uncertainties in regards to tariffs and shipping and all that kind of stuff. But we've managed to line all that up, and that's all taken care of and accounted for. And we can launch these games. We can, because they're so small and because they require so little in terms of logistics, we can attach these to the print run of Sublime Dark and get this all out and printed together, which obviously saves us on freight shipping. And so the timing of all of this has been quite hard to sort of get together, but the reality is that now it's going to be an advantage to us as a publisher and an advantage to potential backers, because we can do it at this much lower cost. And so in that respect, it's been new and interesting and exciting and scary because, you can't permanently discount those prices, and you can't you have to be responsible as a publisher. You have to set fair and balanced pricing. But they're at a low enough point for it to hopefully draw people in who perhaps would go, I'm not paying 70 quid for a giant box of games, but I'll try one of these at 25 quid and see how it goes. And yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, I mean, you've got it funded, which is, I suppose, has hurdle one.
Yeah.
And like I say, I kind of was like, yeah, I'm in, because to be honest, the artwork is so pretty. To buy 3 posters of the artwork, you're talking more expensive than the game.
Yeah.
So, this is weird. Like, this is how I justify these things. I think, well, what else would I spend that money on? And it was like, do you know what? Knowing your games, knowing the production quality, knowing the stories that you tell within them, for me, that is an absolute steal.
I really appreciate you saying that.
No, genuinely. And again, I'm not saying this because you're on the podcast. I've had conversations with Mark, and I've had conversations with other guys, because I try and introduce Gloom of Killforth to as many people as possible. And I've never had a bad time with it. You mentioned something really cool earlier as well about the rule book, and there's a line that's in both the rule books that I've come across, so I'm assuming it's in all of them, where, do you know what, if you play it for the first time and you get a couple of rules wrong, it doesn't matter. Just have a good time with the game. And I think the deeper I seem to get into the hobby, the more stress I put on myself about getting the game right. And it's like, actually, do you know what? If I've spent 2-3 hours and I've had a blast with that game, that's all that matters. And for me, that was a really nice touch. And it was like, do you know what? If you don't get it right, don't worry about it. As long as you've had a good time, get it right next time, and kind of go from that. So for me, the fact that you said that you make your games easier, for me is terrifying, because I always struggle with them. So I'd hate to think where that goes. But the fact that you said it as well, like, the cards are just flip, read, do something, move on. That for me, I've done an episode on our pod recently about solo gaming. For me, it's something that I'm getting more and more into. And the fact, like you said, it's a solo game with the option of co-op, and you can bust out in half an hour and go, cool. Or, if you mucked it up within half an hour, do you know what? I'll try again. It's not the end of the world. And that kind of thought process of just have a good time with it, even if you don't do it as you as a designer intended, as long as you're having a good time with it, that's all that matters to me. And I think that's such a strong message that kind of get lost, especially the more games I play, the more competitive I play. You kind of forget that I do this for fun.
Yeah.
And for me, that after reading that line, I was like, cool, like, I'm just going to mess around with this and have fun and kind of go from there. So yeah, and the fact that you're quite available to fans about gaming rules, especially of your own games, that's really cool as well. Because typically, if somebody posts a question, you've actually responded to it. Maybe not all the time. I get that you're very busy, and that puts a lot of pressure on you moving forward. I'm going to get an answer from Tristan, but the fact that you're quite kind of active in that is awesome. It's like, do you know what? If you get it wrong, don't worry about it. And for me, that's kind of made it a lot more accessible.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear as well, because I've played games and I've watched other people teach games and struggle with the teach, and then get halfway through a game and be like, oh no, I've got to look this up, and then the game stops for 10 minutes and they're going through like a encyclopedic rule book or checking online, and like you're going on Board Game Geek to look up the answer and all this kind of stuff, and my gut instinct is, of course you want to play by the rules as written, but if it's going to hold everything up, just pick a rule, make a note of it, and find out after the game, and next time you play it, you can correct that. And if it's game breaking, the next time you play it, you'll get it right, and whatever. But looking online and as a gamer and as a hobbyist, I see the sort of I don't want to say panic, but like that sort of like obsession that people have with getting the rules exactly right, and some people will come on and correct you and go, oh, if you're not playing it this way, then you're not playing the game, kind of thing, and it's sort of it detracts from the experience, because if you play for a game for 3 or 4 hours or whatever, and at the end of the night you got a rule wrong, it doesn't invalidate what you've just done, unless you had a horrendous time with the game. And a lot of my games, like Gloom of Killforth, have modular elements that you could just skip entirely. And so, for example, it's in the rules that if you don't want to use plots or ancient abilities or like things that make it more complex and more difficult, just leave them out until you're more familiar with the game. And if you want to make it easier, if you want to make die rolls succeed in a 4, 5, or 6 instead of a 5 or 6, do that until you've got the grip, until you're ready for that next level challenge. I come from playing games in the 80s and 90s, which were in some cases really difficult, like really high difficulty. And I love Dark Souls. I played like video games that are almost, like ridiculously difficult, because the feeling of achievement you get when you unlock a bonfire in Dark Souls or Bloodborne or something like that is so far and away above what I get from playing through like a regular like narrative story game. That I kind of want to offer those experiences in my games. But not everybody likes that. And some people like to play collaboratively, and some people like to play games that don't have wipeout conditions, that aren't like Through the Ages where you can wipe someone off the map. And so all of these things you've got to sort of balance when you're designing a game. But that approach of just giving people the permission to enjoy it without having to obsess over every detail, I didn't take for granted that people would do that when playing my games. And so that's newer. That's not in the very first edition of Gloom of Killforth. That's something that I added after the fact. But people, you're not the first person to mention that. A lot of people have said, "Oh, it's really nice that you've included this. Don't worry about the rule." And I'm like, take that and do that to every game that you play.
Yeah, and
like
from that, I've tried to, because I've opened games before and gone, I'll come back to it later, but
yeah,
unconsciously having permission to play a game the way you want, although you should feel that way anyway.
yeah,
You want to get it right and you want to have a good time with it, but at the same time, pull levers, press buttons, and see what happens.
yeah.
And it kind of unconsciously gave me permission to try it in other games. Go, do you know what? I'll play it and see what happens. So yeah, I think it's a really cool element that I haven't seen anywhere else.
Well, it's what budding game designers do as well. It's what I did back in the day, and you tinker with other people's games and you break them and you muck about with them and you rebuild them, or you expand them and add new scenarios and new characters, or whatever it is. You play with the rules, you play with the rule set, and you find variants. Maybe you play a great game, but it takes too long, so you come up with a rules like a variant to make it shorter.
Mm.
And a lot of designers now are keenly aware of this stuff, so you get lots of variants included to make games shorter and this, that, and the other. But we shouldn't be afraid. We're playing games at the end of the day, so we shouldn't be afraid to play with the rules of those games. As long as it's fair to everybody, as long as it's not like, oh well, this one faction is way better, and as long as everybody's enjoying the experience together, and it's as difficult for everyone together, or is it's easier for everyone together, then yeah, it should absolutely just be about the joy of getting together with your mates. Or in my case, all of my games are solo friendly. Playing the game by yourself, and if you cock it up and you don't get the rules 100% right, fix it next time, but not in the middle of the game, not whilst you're having a narrative experience, or figuring out the mechanisms and tactics of a particular game. But yeah,
no, that's perfect. Yeah, because like I say, it kind of opened the door to other games, which yeah. But like I say, it's the only time I've seen it. It was you writing it, so thank you for that.
Well, I'm probably not the first person to do it. It's one of it'll be out there in the zeitgeist. Someone will have done it first. But the sentiment, I think, is really the thing. And it's a nice sentiment. Take the pressure off. You've got enough. We've all got enough pressure at work and everything. When you're playing the games, it shouldn't be as when someone's teaching you a game and the brow is beading with sweat over the pressure of getting those rules right, the last thing you want to do is slap more judgment on them, and more pressure. So yeah,
it can feel like that sometimes. But you just I don't have capacity to deal with this at the moment, and you just sat there thinking this should be fun. If it gets to the point where you're like this should be fun, so yeah, I'm doing it wrong. No, thank you. But it's really nice to kind of hear how passionate you are about it, and because you kind of at a distance, you kind of for somebody like yourselves, a small publisher, and I mean no disrespect by saying smaller publisher, is that kind of not only do you have to do the projects that you're passionate about, but obviously there's a lot of love, attention, care that goes into this. And that's something that I feel that I found in kind of all of your games is that, like I say, the lore's deep and you can tell somebody genuinely cares about this product, which is probably the advantage that you have as a smaller publisher as opposed to the kind of bigger ones is your passion project, right? You're making games that you want to play. And I'm assuming that the Night of Wolves and the Path of Ruin, I'm assuming that they the Ruined Path, I should say. Sorry, I've become Path of Ruin, jeez.
Again, it's fine. If you get it wrong, you just correct it next time.
There we go. See, it's a rule to live by, not a rule to play by. So yeah, with my experience of your games, I have no doubt that these are going to be cracking, a lot of fun. Because an interesting thought that I just had is that I don't have a solo deck building game. I have games with a solo variant of a deck building game, but I don't have a specific solo deck building game. And like I say, deck builders tend to take a while. They tend because it's that engine build up, right? Is kind of you need to invest the time in to get a better deck. So the fact that you can do this in 30 minutes for me is I'm so excited to play these games. That's why I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I thought for all of about 30 seconds before I backed. So with the ongoing campaign, I wish you all the very, very best of luck. I hope as many people kind of get to see it and play it and view it as humanly possible, because the price point is accessible, artwork's beautiful. And you're going to have a good time with it. So I wish you all the very, very best of luck with it.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you saying that. And yeah, we, as you mentioned, we are just it's just me and my wife, the publishers, and she does all the clever stuff with the accounts and that, and I get to design games and run fulfillment and things. And it's a terrific privilege. But also it is difficult to be heard, in the noise and to get the word out there. So anything like this is a real boost to us. To be asked on the podcast is a privilege, and so thank you for having us and for sharing the word, spreading the word, and for being a gamer. I'm a gamer way before a designer, and you mentioned there like about designing these games. For me, I want a game that I want to make games that aren't there yet for me. I want a solo fantasy deck builder. Well, there isn't one that ticks that box, so I'm going to do that. Or I want a narrative like adventure card game that I can play in 13 minutes with great art. Okay, well, there isn't one that I've seen so I'm gonna do that, and that's my approach. So fingers crossed that it connects with other people who have similar tastes.
I've absolutely no doubt it will. Judging off your past and your past games and how passionate you are about this, I have absolutely no doubt this is going to be fantastic. As soon as it gets fulfilled and delivered, I will get it to the table as quickly as possible and let you know. We don't do reviews on the podcast, we just don't. But I'll quite happily drop you a message and let you know how much I loved it, because I already know I'm going to. So thank you very much. Whatever the formula is with you and your wife, don't change it. Keep doing what you're doing, and continue pumping out these great games. So from me personally, thank you very much. Thanks for that, Tristan. I'm very excited to see the fulfillment of the Kickstarter. So while I've got you here, and because I probably won't see you until the summer at Expo, what have you got in the pipeline, or have you got anything coming that you can kind of tease us about?
Okay, cool. Well, at the Expo, hopefully we'll have these games. We should have playable, purchasable copies of Night of Wolves, Ruin Path, and Sublime Dark. So if you pre-order them, you should have them before the Expo. Fingers crossed. That's definitely what we're aiming for. And then, of course, next year I want to play catch up a little bit, because this year we didn't have any new games until December, which is a long time to go for an indie publisher that thrives on getting new products out. And so, but of course, it's difficult one to manage as a solo publisher, because you don't want to have multiple projects going at the same time and have people thinking, well, hang on, I'm still waiting for this, that, and the other. So it was very important to me to be able to get both of these small box games lined up with Sublime Dark, so that we can deliver them all at once and not have people waiting. So once that's all 100% in hand, and I've got the mass production copy in my hands, and I'm happy with the quality and everything, and we've signed off, printing has commenced and underway, then we'll be looking at the next game to launch. And probably the first, most likely, game is going to be Wyvernmoor. Well, it's a direct sequel to Creel Manor. It uses the same system, but rather than being set inside this one citadel, it's going to be an overland adventure. So primarily that means new cards, but it also means like weather effects, brand new heroes, brand new monsters and encounters, and new pieces of artwork and things like that. So really looking forward to that.
That sounds awesome, because I'm about to go on a Creel Manor run at the moment. So
brilliant.
I doubt very much I'll get to experience all of Creel Manor before that comes out, but it's nice that if that's coming down the potential pipeline, that I'm very much looking forward to that already.
Brill. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've had really good feedback about Creel Manor. It's the game itself is an evolution of a game I did previously called Veil Wraith, which was a borderline impossible game about the end of the world and doing the apocalypse with like monochromatic artwork, which I thought was really beautiful and unique. And a lot of people were like, "Where's all the colours?" So Creel Manor was like, "Okay, we can do that system, but in colour and with lots of added stuff, loot and specialized character skills and stuff like that." But it's a game that I really enjoy mechanically. I find it quite addictive, and playtesting Creel Manor was a real pleasure. And so that's Wyvernmoor is going to be more of the same, basically, like a new campaign in the same using the same mechanisms, but with brand new heroes and adventures and everything. So I think that's going to be the thing that we'll be kicking off with next year once all of this is wrapped up in a bow.
Well, I'd very much appreciate if you could leave some money in my bank account, Tristan, because I already I'm like, yeah, I'm in already. Just yeah, take my money. That's very exciting, but also nice that you're not getting burnout from making games, because I'm guessing making the game sometimes is the not making the game, but coming up with the game is the fun bit, and kind of imagine it's a bit that's stressful, but the most fun at the same time. And then you've got kind of the business elements of it, which potentially can't be as fun because you're not in direct control of them, I imagine. So, it's trying to forecast where the wind's are going to blow in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the stress is definitely such as it is. It regards like international shipping, VAT, fulfillment, and tariffs, and all that kind of stuff. That's the stress side. The game development side is amazing. It's like the most fun. And like if I could change, if I could rebalance it so that was all I had to do, life would be perfect. But it's trying to stop myself from getting too many projects going at once so that I can, first of all, see them all through, but also time them out so that we're not overloading people with products, which is what they are at the end of the day. It's a really corporate thing to sort of say about them. But the fun thing is I get to pivot between a design system that I have developed and really enjoy, like Manor and Withenmore or the Killforth games, and then coming up with brand new systems and wanting to do brand new systems. Like I want to do a 4X game, and that's like a huge push for me design-wise next year. And I'll do a science fiction game, and so I have loads of ideas, loads of half-developed games that I want to push forward, to get to the next level. But it's always a pleasure going back into a system like Real Manor and playing and mucking about inside that world and inside those mechanisms. So yeah, it's going to be a long time before that novel because I've still got a lot of games I want to get out there first.
It's nice to have a second career choice, I suppose, if you ever need it. But from a fan and a consumer, I'm just, it's really nice to see that this isn't going to end anytime soon, and the kind of the hunger for that world, to create these worlds and kind of create different games within these worlds. I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the future, and yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Brilliant. Thanks.
And that wraps up our expansion episode. Personally, a massive thank you to Tristan for coming on and speaking to me. I am genuinely a huge fan of his games and very excited to see the Kickstarter fulfilled. Details of which you can find on Kickstarter under the Night of Wolves and the Ruined Path campaign. The campaign finishes on the 6th of January, so there is still time to back this project. We will leave all the notes of where to find Tristan, Hall or Nothing Productions, and the campaign in the notes. So if you're interested, then please check them out because I think they're going to be great. If you like our content and you like what we do, please feel free to support us on Ko-fi. Those details can also be found in the show notes, along with how to get in contact with us. So all that's left is for me to say thank you very much, and whose turn is it anyway?